In the vast expanse of the galaxy, where 1,000 civilizations bowed to the might of the Galactic Consortium, humanity was considered nothing more than a cosmic joke. A species of primitive apes who had barely crawled out of their gravity well, clinging to a single yellow star in an unremarkable spiral arm. The Council of 500 had laughed when humans first requested membership, their primitive ships sparking amusement among beings who had mastered faster-than-light travel when Earth was still a molten rock. But laughter has a way of dying in one's throat. When Ambassador Elena Vasquez stepped into the Grand Assembly Hall of Nexus Prime, she carried with her not just the hopes of 8 billion humans, but something the galaxy had never seen before. Something that would make the stars themselves tremble. The insult had been delivered with calculated cruelty, broadcast across every inhabited system. Humanity is a disease that should have been sterilized at first contact. They thought they knew what they were dealing with. They thought wrong. What the Galactic Consortium was about to discover would rewrite the very definition of warfare, diplomacy, and survival. Because when you corner a species that has spent its entire existence fighting everything from ice ages to each other, when you threaten a race that has turned their own homeworld into a fortress of ingenuity and determination, you don't get surrender. You get something far more terrifying. You get humanity unleashed. The crystalline spires of Nexus Prime stretched toward 3 purple suns, their surfaces reflecting the light of 1,000 different starships orbiting the galactic capital. Ambassador Elena Vasquez pressed her palm against the cool metal of her transport's viewport, watching as massive vessels from across the galaxy drifted past like metallic whales in an ocean of stars. Each ship represented a civilization that had earned its place among the Galactic Consortium, each one a testament to technological achievement that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. Or so they believed. Elena adjusted her formal diplomatic attire, the deep blue fabric bearing the simple emblem of Earth. No exotic materials, no energy shields woven into the cloth, no adaptive camouflage or environmental controls. Just human-made cotton and synthetic fibers that would have seemed laughably primitive to any other species in the consortium. She had chosen it deliberately. "Ambassador, we're receiving our docking assignment," reported Captain Sarachun from the pilot's seat. The bridge of the human vessel was cramped compared to the massive command centers of other species. Its controls operated by physical switches and holographic displays rather than the neural interfaces favored by more advanced civilizations. Base 712. "They're putting us in the cargo section." Elena smiled grimly. Even in their docking assignments, the insult was clear. The consortium had relegated humanity's diplomatic vessel to the same area where trade goods and supplies were unloaded. She had expected nothing less. The transport shuddered slightly as it passed through the energy barriers that separated the docking bay from the vacuum of space. Through the viewport, Elena could see the organized chaos of Nexus Prime's commercial district. Automated loading mechs moved containers the size of city blocks, while beings in environmental suits supervised operations with casual efficiency. The scale was overwhelming, designed to intimidate visitors from lesser civilizations. As they touched down, Elena gathered her small diplomatic team. Commander Marcus Thompson, her military attaché, checked his ceremonial sidearm one final time. Dr. Sarah Hendricks, their xenoanthropologist, reviewed her notes on consortium protocol. Engineer James Park monitored the sealed container they had brought with them, its contents known only to a select few within Earth's government. "Remember," Elena addressed her team as the airlocks cycled open, "we're here to listen. Whatever they say, however they choose to humiliate us, we respond with dignity and patience. Earth is depending on our restraint." The docking bay's atmosphere hit them like a wall of alien scents and sounds. The gravity was slightly higher than Earth standard, and the air carried the metallic taste of recycled atmosphere mixed with the pheromones of a dozen different species. Elena led her team through the maze of cargo containers and loading equipment, following the holographic arrows that guided them toward the diplomatic order. Their first sign of the consortium's attitude came at the security checkpoint. While other diplomatic delegations passed through seamlessly, their credentials verified instantly by quantum-encrypted networks, Elena and her team were subjected to invasive scans and lengthy delays. The Zarathi security officer, a tall insectoid being with compound eyes and chitinous armor, examined their documents with theatrical suspicion. Humans, the officer clicked in accented Galactic standard from the Sol system. The Council has been anticipating your arrival. The tone carried unmistakable mockery. Elena maintained her diplomatic smile as they were finally clear to proceed, though she noticed Commander Thompson's jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. The journey through Nexus Prime's diplomatic quarter was a study in galactic power dynamics. Towering Vorthan delegates strode past in groups, their blue crystalline skin refracting light in patterns that communicated complex political concepts. Graceful Alani floated in environmental bubbles filled with their homeworld's methane atmosphere, their tentacles dancing in gestures that served as both communication and art. Even the newest members of the consortium, recently uplifted species from the galactic rim, commanded more respect than humanity's delegation. Elena observed it all with the trained eye of a career diplomat. The architecture itself was a statement of power, with soaring chambers that dwarfed human-scale construction. The walls displayed rotating holograms showcasing the achievements of member civilizations, stellar engineering projects, terraformed worlds, technologies that bent the fundamental forces of physics to their will. Notably absent was any mention of the 137 species that had been deemed unworthy of consortium membership. The Grand Assembly Hall loomed before them, its doors tall enough to accommodate the largest species in the galaxy. As they approached, Elena's communicator chimed with an incoming message from the Earth government. The text was brief. Proceed as planned. The President sends his regards. Inside the hall, 500 beings representing the galaxy's most powerful civilizations had gathered. The chamber was arranged in concentric circles, with the most influential species occupying the inner rings. Humanity had been assigned seats in the outermost circle, relegated to the same section as observer species, and those seeking to petition for basic trade rights. At the center of the assembly, the 5 speakers of the consortium took their places. These beings, elected from among the most advanced civilizations, wielded authority over 1 trillion sentient souls across 1 million worlds. The Speaker Prime, an ancient Zephyrian whose consciousness existed as pure energy within a containment field, began the session with a traditional invocation in Old Galactic. We gather under the light of distant stars to discuss the matters that bind our civilizations together in common purpose. The energy being intoned, its voice resonating directly in the minds of all present. Today, we address the petition of the species known as humanity for observer status within the Galactic Consortium. A ripple of what Elena could only interpret as amusement passed through the assembly. The human delegation's request for even the lowest level of consortium membership had become something of a running joke among galactic civilizations. Humanity's technology was primitive, their society fractured by internal conflicts, their achievements laughably modest by galactic standards. The first to speak was Counselor Vextar of the Hegemony, a massive arachnoid being whose species had achieved faster-than-light travel when early humans were discovering fire. His 8 eyes focused on the human delegation with unconcealed disdain. Honored speakers, fellow counselors, Vextar began, his voice carrying the authority of one whose civilization had conquered star systems before humanity had developed agriculture. I rise to address what can only be described as a cosmic absurdity. The species calling itself humanity seeks recognition from this august body, despite possessing technology that our apprentices would find primitive. Murmurs of agreement echoed through the chamber. Elena maintained her composure, though she could sense her team's tension. Consider the facts, Vextar continued, warming to his subject. Humanity has achieved crude, faster-than-light travel only within the last century. Their fastest vessels would require decades to cross distances our ships traverse in days. They have colonized fewer than 12 worlds, all within a single star system's neighborhood. Their greatest achievements in stellar engineering amount to simple orbital habitats that our species builds as recreational projects. The speaker of the ethereal collective, a being of pure thought that communicated through controlled electromagnetic pulses, added its voice to the criticism. The humans demonstrate technological naivete that borders on the dangerous. Their attempt to create artificial intelligence resulted in the near destruction of their homeworld's information infrastructure. Their experiments with dimensional manipulation caused spatial distortions that required intervention from our monitoring stations to prevent catastrophic cascade effects. Elena felt Dr. Hendricks' shift beside her, but a subtle gesture kept the xenoanthropologist from responding. This was exactly what they had expected. The condemnation continued for hours. Species after species rose to catalog humanity's supposed inadequacies. The quantum builders criticized their clumsy attempts at matter manipulation. The star shepherds mocked their primitive understanding of stellar mechanics. The Time Wardens laughed at their linear perception of temporal flow. With each criticism, Elena noticed, the rhetoric grew more heated, more personal. What had begun as technical assessments of human capabilities had devolved into something far more ugly. Finally, Counselor Thane of the Iron Worlds took the floor. The cybernetic being's organic brain was housed in a chassis of living metal, his species having long ago abandoned biological weakness in favor of mechanical perfection. His voice, when he spoke, carried the cold authority of absolute certainty. "Honored speakers, we waste time with technical discussions," Thane declared, his optical sensors focusing on Elena with unmistakable hostility. "The fundamental issue is not humanity's current technological limitations, but their fundamental nature as a species." The chamber fell silent, sensing that the Iron World's representative was about to cross a line that even galactic politics usually respected. "Humanity is not merely primitive," Thane continued, his words broadcast to every inhabited system in the galaxy. "They are a cosmic aberration, a species so violent, so destructive, so utterly incapable of civilized behavior that they represent a threat to galactic stability. They wage war upon their own kind with a savagery that would shame the most primitive predator species. They have poisoned their own biosphere, depleted their natural resources, and created weapons capable of sterilizing their entire planet." Elena's hands clenched involuntarily, but she forced her expression to remain neutral. Around the chamber, beings that had previously shown mere contempt now displayed something approaching genuine hatred. "Most disturbing of all," Thane pressed on, "is their absolute refusal to acknowledge their own inferiority. Despite overwhelming evidence of their limitations, they persist in seeking recognition from civilizations that have evolved beyond their comprehension. They display the arrogance of children playing with their betters' tools, completely unaware of the damage they might cause." The Speaker Prime's energy field flickered with what might have been uncertainty. "Counselor Thane, while frank assessment is valuable, perhaps we should maintain diplomatic—" "No," Thane interrupted, a breach of protocol that sent shock waves through the assembly. "Diplomacy implies respect between equals. These creatures deserve no such consideration. They are barely evolved primates who have stumbled upon technologies they cannot understand and lack the wisdom to use responsibly." The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien voices, some calling for order, others expressing agreement with Thane's harsh assessment. Elena rose slowly from her seat, her movement drawing attention across the vast hall. "The human delegation requests permission to address the assembly," she said, her voice carrying clearly despite the ongoing chaos. The Speaker Prime's energy field pulsed with what might have been curiosity. "The chair recognizes Ambassador Vasquez of the Sol System." Elena stepped forward, her small human frame dwarfed by the towering alien beings that surrounded her. She looked up at Counselor Thane, meeting his optical sensors with steady brown eyes. "Counselor Thane, honored speakers, distinguished delegates," she began, her voice calm and measured, "I want to thank you for this illuminating discussion. You have clarified humanity's position in the galaxy with remarkable precision." Confused murmurs rippled through the assembly. They had expected anger, defensiveness, perhaps even a dramatic withdrawal from the proceedings. Elena's apparent composure was unexpected. "You are correct," Elena continued, "that humanity is young by galactic standards. Our technology is indeed primitive compared to your achievements. Our civilization spans only a handful of worlds, while yours encompasses thousands. By every metric that this assembly considers important, we are inferior." The chamber had fallen silent, every being straining to understand where the human diplomat was leading. "But I wonder," Elena said, her voice taking on a quality that somehow carried to every corner of the vast space, "if in your vast knowledge and ancient wisdom, You have considered what happens when a primitive, violent, arrogant species feels genuinely threatened. She gestured to Engineer Park, who activated the sealed container he had been guarding. A holographic display materialized above the human delegation, showing what appeared to be a simple metal sphere approximately 1 meter in diameter. This, Elena announced, is a demonstration device, a proof of concept that represents the culmination of humanity's most recent technological achievement. We call it the Nova Seed. The hologram rotated slowly, its simple exterior giving no hint of its purpose. Around the chamber, the galaxy's greatest scientific minds focused their attention on what appeared to be an unremarkable piece of human engineering. Dr. Hendricks stepped forward, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent her career studying the rise and fall of civilizations. The Nova Seed represents humanity's response to a simple question. What happens when a species with nothing to lose faces extinction? What solutions might they discover when their very survival depends on thinking beyond conventional limitations? The holographic display shifted, showing the sphere's internal structure. What the aliens saw defied their understanding of human technological capabilities. Quantum matrices that shouldn't have been possible with Earth's technology. Temporal stabilizers that represented advances their own civilizations hadn't achieved. Most disturbing of all, containment systems that suggested the device held forces that could remake matter at the subatomic level. Elena's voice cut through the stunned silence. The Nova Seed is designed to trigger a cascading quantum reaction within stellar mass. Once activated, it would cause a star to undergo controlled collapse and reformation, releasing energy equivalent to several supernovas in a precisely directed pattern. The implications hit the assembly like a physical blow. Several delegates rose from their seats in alarm, while others began rapid consultations with their scientific advisors through quantum communication links. You speak of our violence, our destructiveness, Elena continued, her diplomatic composure never wavering. You mock our primitive understanding of stellar mechanics. But you have failed to consider what that violence becomes when it is focused by desperation and guided by intelligence, however limited you may consider it to be. Commander Thompson stepped forward, his military bearing commanding respect even among beings who had never experienced human warfare. Earth's strategic doctrine has always been simple. If we cannot win through superior technology, we win through superior determination. If we cannot match our enemy's capabilities, we ensure that victory over humanity costs more than any rational being would be willing to pay. The chamber erupted in chaos as the full meaning of the human demonstration became clear. Counselor Thane's optical sensors focused on the holographic display with what could only be described as horror. You would threaten to destroy star systems? He demanded, his mechanical voice distorted by what sounded like genuine fear. Elena smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. It was not a pleasant expression. Threaten? Counselor Thane, I think you misunderstand humanity's position. We are not here to make threats. We are here to inform the Galactic Consortium of a simple fact. She gestured again, and the holographic display expanded to show a tactical overview of local space. Red dots appeared throughout the display, marking the positions of devices identical to the Nova Seed. They were everywhere, hidden in asteroid fields, disguised as derelict spacecraft, embedded in the cores of uninhabited moons. Hundreds of them, positioned throughout Consortium space. For the past 50 years, while you dismissed us as primitive and irrelevant, humanity has been playing a very different game. Every diplomatic mission, every trade expedition, every scientific exchange has served a dual purpose. We have been planting Nova Seeds throughout your territories, carefully positioned to maximize strategic impact. The silence that followed was absolute. 500 of the galaxy's most powerful beings stared at the holographic display, their minds struggling to process the implications of what they were seeing. Elena's voice, when she continued, carried the weight of absolute certainty. Earth's position is simple. We seek peaceful coexistence and mutually beneficial relationships with all galactic civilizations. We hope to learn from your achievements and contribute our own small innovations to the common good. But we will not be dismissed, insulted, or threatened by beings who mistake technological advancement for wisdom. She looked directly at Counselor Thane. You called humanity a disease that should be sterilized. I want you to understand what sterilizing humanity would actually cost you. If Earth falls, if our species is destroyed, if we are denied our rightful place among civilized beings, then the devices we have positioned throughout your territories will activate automatically. The holographic display shifted to show projected casualties. Systems with populations in the billions would be wiped clean. Trade routes that had existed for millennia would become impassable radiation zones. The economic and social disruption would cascade through the galaxy for centuries. 317 stars would go nova simultaneously. Dr. Hendricks added clinical detachment. The resulting gravitational waves would destabilize jump routes throughout the local galactic arm. Conservative estimates suggest that rebuilding your transportation infrastructure would require approximately 2,000 years. Elena looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes, sensors, and consciousness fields of beings who had moments before considered themselves infinitely superior to anything humanity could produce. This is not negotiation. This is not a bluff. This is simply information that we thought you should have when making your decisions about humanity's future in the galaxy. The Speaker Prime's energy field flickered wildly as the ancient consciousness struggled to process this unprecedented situation. Ambassador Vasquez, you are essentially threatening the genocide of trillions of sentient beings. Elena's expression remained perfectly calm. No, Speaker Prime. We are promising that the destruction of humanity will not be a simple matter of superior beings eliminating inferior ones. We are promising that it will be the most catastrophically expensive mistake in galactic history. She gestured to her team, and they began gathering their materials. We will retire to our assigned quarters while the consortium considers its position. Earth looks forward to productive discussions about our mutual future once you have fully appreciated the current strategic reality. As the human delegation prepared to leave, Elena turned back to address the stunned assembly one final time. Oh, and Counselor Thane, you were absolutely correct about humanity's violent nature. We are indeed a species that wages war upon our own kind with savage efficiency. We poison biospheres, create weapons of mass destruction, and display remarkable arrogance in the face of superior forces. Her smile carried the weight of 8 billion humans standing behind her. What you fail to consider is what such a species might accomplish when all that violence and arrogance is directed outward toward those foolish enough to threaten our existence. The chamber remained in stunned silence long after the humans had departed, 500 of the galaxy's most powerful beings coming to terms with the fact that they had just been outmaneuvered by the primitive apes they had so recently scorned. In the depths of space, hidden among asteroids and derelict hulks throughout consortium territory, hundreds of Nova seeds waited patiently for the signal that would reshape the galaxy forever. The age of human irrelevance had ended. The age of human terror had begun. The diplomatic quarters assigned to humanity were sparse by consortium standards. But Elena Vasquez found the simplicity refreshing after the overwhelming grandeur of the Grand Assembly Hall. The rooms were designed for species requiring standard atmospheric conditions, with basic furniture that adapted to different physiologies. For humans, it felt almost comfortable, though Elena suspected that comfort had been the furthest thing from their hosts' minds when making the assignment. Commander Thompson was conducting a security sweep of their suite when Elena's communication device chimed with an encrypted message from Earth. The quantum encryption was humanity's own design, unbreakable by any known consortium technology, despite being dismissed as primitive by the galaxy's leading cybersecurity experts. Admiral Chun sends her compliments. Elena read from the decoded message. Operation Damocles is proceeding on schedule. All devices remain undetected and fully operational. Earth stands ready to execute contingency protocols on your authorization. Dr. Hendricks looked up from her analysis of the assembly proceedings. The reaction was even stronger than our psychological profiles predicted. Several species showed genuine fear responses that their translators couldn't fully mask. Fear is useful, Elena replied, settling into a chair that adjusted itself to her human physiology. But we need more than fear. We need respect, and respect only comes from strength they can understand. Engineer Park was monitoring quantum communication traffic throughout Nexus Prime, his equipment disguised as standard human computing devices. The data streaming across his displays painted a picture of a galaxy in chaos. Emergency sessions were being called on a dozen worlds. The consortium's military command was conducting threat assessments that hadn't been necessary for thousands of years. Most importantly, no one had yet detected the true scope of humanity's preparations. Ambassador, Park reported, I'm detecting massive spikes in secure communication traffic. The hegemony has recalled 3 battle fleets to defensive positions. The Ethereal Collective is conducting emergency consciousness-sharing sessions across their entire population. Even the Time Wardens are accelerating their temporal monitoring protocols. Elena nodded with satisfaction. The galaxy's most powerful civilizations were finally taking humanity seriously, even if that attention came wrapped in terror and outrage. A soft chime indicated an incoming visitor. Elena checked the security display and was surprised to see a single figure waiting at their door. Counselor ZRTH of the Synthetic Minds, one of the few beings in the consortium who had remained silent during the assembly proceedings. Interesting, Elena murmured. The Synthetic Minds were among the galaxy's most analytical species, their consciousness existing as pure information within quantum computing matrices. They rarely engaged in diplomatic initiatives outside formal channels. Elena opened the door to find ZRTH's physical avatar, a sleek humanoid form constructed from programmable matter that shifted and flowed like liquid metal. The being's facial features were constantly changing, cycling through different aesthetic preferences as its consciousness sampled various forms of beauty from across the galaxy. Ambassador Vasquez, ZRTH spoke with a voice that harmonized with itself in complex musical patterns. I request permission to engage in informal discussion regarding the current strategic situation. Please come in, Elena replied, gesturing to the sitting area. Can I offer you anything? I'm afraid our refreshment options are limited. I require no physical sustenance, ZRTH replied, its form settling into a configuration that suggested openness and attention. I come to satisfy information hunger, which your species has provided in abundance. Dr. Hendricks activated her recording equipment discreetly, ensuring that this conversation would be preserved for analysis. Commander Thompson remained standing, his position chosen to provide optimal protection while appearing casual. You have created a fascinating paradox, ZRTH continued, its features stabilizing into something resembling human aesthetic preferences. A species that claims to seek peaceful coexistence while demonstrating unprecedented capacity for mutually assured destruction. Elena smiled. We prefer to think of it as insurance. Humanity has learned that peaceful coexistence requires that all parties understand the true cost of conflict. Indeed, ZRTH's form shifted, displaying patterns of light that conveyed complex mathematical concepts. Our analysis suggests that your species has achieved something remarkable. You have made yourselves simultaneously too dangerous to attack and too valuable to ignore. What do you mean? Elena asked, though she suspected she knew where this conversation was heading. The Nova C technology represents more than a weapon, ZRTH explained, its voice taking on tones that suggested deep appreciation for elegant solutions. The quantum matrices required for stellar manipulation indicate advances in fundamental physics that our species have been struggling to achieve for millennia. The temporal stabilization systems suggest an understanding of time mechanics that even the Time Wardens find impressive. Engineer Park looked up from his displays, his expression carefully neutral. Elena had warned her team that their technological demonstrations would attract this kind of attention. You're suggesting that humanity's weapons technology has peaceful applications? Elena asked. I'm stating it as mathematical certainty, ZRTH replied. Controlled stellar reformation could solve energy crises across the galaxy. The temporal stabilization technology could revolutionize space travel and communication. The quantum matrices could enable manufacturing capabilities that would transform entire civilizations. The Synthetic Mind's avatar leaned forward, its features expressing what Elena interpreted as intense curiosity. Tell me, Ambassador, was this intentional? Did humanity deliberately design weapons that would become irresistible technological gifts once the immediate threat was resolved? Elena exchanged glances with Dr. Hendricks, who nodded almost imperceptibly. Their psychological profiles of the synthetic minds had suggested this conversation was inevitable. Counselor Zerth, Elena said carefully, humanity's approach to technological development has always been pragmatic. We create what we need to survive, and we adapt our creations to serve multiple purposes. The Novaseed technology emerged from our need to ensure that destroying Earth would be strategically impossible. That it might have other applications is a fortunate coincidence. Fortunate for whom? Zardich asked, its tone suggesting it already knew the answer. For anyone who prefers cooperation to conflict, Elena replied. Humanity is prepared to share our innovations with civilizations that treat us as equals. We're equally prepared to ensure that those innovations are never used against their creators. The door chimed again, indicating another visitor. This time, Elena's security display showed a group of beings representing some of the consortium's most powerful military civilizations. Vextar of the Hegemony stood alongside General Korath of the Warcast and Admiral Nexus of the Starfleet Command. It appears word travels quickly on Nexus Prime, Elena observed. Information propagates at the speed of quantum entanglement when a galaxy's survival is at stake, Zar-Th replied, its form beginning to shift back to its default configuration. With your permission, I will remain to observe this interaction. The synthetic minds find the current situation educationally valuable. Elena opened the door to admit the military delegation, noting how each being's posture conveyed different aspects of barely contained tension. Vextar's 8 eyes moved constantly, scanning for threats in ways that suggested his species had once been prey animals. General Korath's cybernetic implants glowed with increased activity, indicating elevated stress responses. Admiral Nexus maintained a rigid bearing of someone accustomed to commanding vast fleets, but Elena could see the uncertainty in his bioluminescent skin patterns. Ambassador, Vextar spoke without preamble. We require immediate clarification regarding the nature and extent of your species' military preparations. Please sit down, Elena offered, though she noticed that none of the beings took her suggestion. I'm happy to discuss any questions you might have about Earth's defensive capabilities. Defensive capabilities? General Korath's voice carried the harsh tones of someone who had spent centuries in combat zones. You have positioned weapons of mass destruction throughout sovereign consortium territory without authorization or detection. This constitutes an act of war. Elena's expression remained perfectly calm. General, I think you misunderstand the nature of our preparations. Earth has taken defensive measures to ensure our survival in a galaxy that has repeatedly demonstrated hostility toward human existence. We have not attacked anyone, invaded any territory, or made any aggressive demands. You threaten the destruction of entire star systems. Admiral Nexus interjected, his bioluminescent patterns flashing in what Elena's briefings had identified as extreme agitation. We promise consequences, gentlemen. Perhaps we could approach this from a strategic rather than emotional perspective. Admiral Nexus, your own species faced extinction during the Void War 3,000 years ago. How did the Stellar Federation respond to that threat? The Admiral's patterns shifted to more thoughtful configurations. We employed scorched space tactics. If our worlds could not be held, we ensured they could not be used by the enemy. Precisely, Dr. Hendricks nodded. And General Korath, the Warcast's famous victory at the Battle of Crimson Nebula was achieved through what your histories call acceptable mutual destruction. You were willing to sacrifice 3 entire battle fleets to eliminate the enemy's strategic advantage. General Korath's cybernetic implants pulsed as he accessed military databases. You suggest that humanity is employing established military doctrine on a galactic scale. We suggest that humanity is doing what any rational species would do when faced with the possibility of genocide, Elena replied. We are ensuring that such an action would be strategically impossible to justify. Vextar's multiple eyes focused on Elena with what she interpreted as grudging respect. The hegemony has underestimated your species' strategic sophistication. We assumed that primitive technology indicated primitive thinking. A common mistake, Elena agreed. But consider this. Humanity achieved faster-than-light travel despite having no natural mathematical intuition for higher-dimensional geometry. We developed quantum computing without being able to perceive quantum effects directly. We mastered stellar engineering despite evolving on a single world orbiting a single star. She gestured toward the window, where Nexus Prime's triple suns painted the sky in alien colors. Every achievement of human civilization required us to think beyond our natural limitations, to imagine solutions that our evolutionary heritage never prepared us for. When a species learns to succeed despite being fundamentally unsuited for the challenges they face, they develop certain habits of mind. Zarath's avatar suddenly brightened, its form shifting to display excitement patterns that were visible across multiple spectrums. You have been operating under resource scarcity and environmental pressure for your entire evolutionary history. Your species developed intelligence specifically to overcome natural disadvantages. While our civilizations, Admiral Nexus added slowly, developed intelligence to exploit natural advantages. We learned to optimize what was already working, while humans learned to create solutions for what was missing. The implications settled over the room like a physical weight. Elena could see the moment when each being truly understood what humanity represented. Not a primitive species that had stumbled onto advanced technology, but a civilization that had been forged by necessity into something unique in the galaxy. This is why the Nova Seed technology emerged so quickly once you felt threatened, General Korath realized. Your species doesn't just respond to threats, it systematically eliminates them. Elena nodded. Humanity has survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, volcanic winters, plagues, and our own tribal conflicts. We've learned that when extinction becomes possible, you don't just defend against the immediate threat. You make sure that type of threat can never arise again. Engineer Park looked up from his monitoring equipment, his expression troubled. Ambassador, I'm detecting increased military activity throughout consortium space. Multiple species are moving to defensive positions, but I'm also seeing coordination patterns that suggest they're preparing for a joint response. The military delegation exchanged glances that conveyed volumes of information through subtle gestures and bioluminescent patterns. Elena realized that these beings hadn't come here just to understand the human threat. They had come to assess whether a united consortium could eliminate it. Before you proceed with whatever plans you're considering, Elena said calmly, there's something else you should know about the Nova Seeds. She gestured to Engineer Park, who activated another holographic display. This one showed the internal structure of the Nova Seed devices in even greater detail, revealing components that hadn't been visible in the assembly presentation. Each device contains a quantum consciousness matrix, Elena explained. They're not just weapons, they're intelligent weapons. They can analyze local conditions, adapt to countermeasures, and communicate with each other instantaneously across galactic distances. The military implications were staggering. Traditional weapons could be neutralized through technological countermeasures or tactical innovation. But weapons that could think, adapt, and coordinate their responses in real time represented a threat that couldn't be conventionally defeated. More importantly, Dr. Hendricks added, each Nova Seed continuously monitors quantum communication traffic in its area. They can detect military buildups, strategic planning sessions, and coordination between hostile forces. If they determine that humanity is facing an organized threat, they can preemptively activate to disrupt enemy operations. Vexstar's voice, when he spoke, carried a tone of horrified admiration. You have created a distributed intelligence network that treats the entire galaxy as a potential battlefield, with your species' survival as its only priority. We have created insurance, Elena corrected. Insurance that ensures human extinction is impossible to achieve and strategically suicidal to attempt. Admiral Nexus's bioluminescent patterns had shifted to configurations that Elena didn't recognize, but Zarath's avatar was displaying what appeared to be analytical appreciation for elegant solutions. There is, however, a positive aspect to this situation, Elena continued, noting how every being in the room focused on her words. Humanity is not interested in conquest, dominion, or the subjugation of other species. We want to learn, to grow, and to contribute to galactic civilization. The Nova Seeds ensure our survival, but they also ensure that we'll never be in a position where expansion through conflict becomes necessary. She looked at each member of the delegation in turn. Earth offers a simple proposition. treat humanity as equals, respect our sovereignty, and benefit from our unique perspective on problem solving. Attempt to eliminate us and ensure that galactic civilization pays a price that makes victory meaningless. General Koratha's cybernetic implants flashed with what Elena interpreted as combat calculations being rapidly processed and discarded. You have engineered a perfect stalemate. Humanity cannot be destroyed without unacceptable cost, but neither can you expand aggressively without triggering coordinated resistance. Precisely, Elena agreed. We have no interest in aggressive expansion because it's unnecessary. Earth has achieved strategic parity with the entire consortium through intelligence rather than force. We're content to maintain that balance indefinitely, as long as our survival is guaranteed. The room fell silent as the implications settled. Humanity had fundamentally altered the balance of power in the galaxy, not through conquest or technological superiority, but through making themselves too dangerous to eliminate and too valuable to ignore. Zara Th's avatar suddenly shifted to display patterns of excited revelation. Ambassador, you have solved the fundamental problem that has plagued galactic civilization for millennia: how to integrate new species without triggering territorial conflicts or resource competition. Elena smiled. Every species in the consortium has more to gain from human technological innovations than they could ever achieve through human subjugation. Engineer Park's monitoring equipment chose that moment to signal an incoming priority transmission from Earth. Elena accepted the encrypted message and read it quickly, her expression revealing nothing of its contents. Gentlemen, she said finally, I've just received word that Earth has authorized me to begin the next phase of our diplomatic initiative. If the consortium is prepared to discuss humanity's formal integration on equal terms, we're ready to demonstrate that the Novaseeds represent only the beginning of what human innovation can offer to galactic civilization. The military delegation exchanged glances that conveyed calculations Elena couldn't fully interpret, but the shift in their postures suggested that the conversation had moved from threat assessment to opportunity evaluation. The age of human irrelevance was ending. The age of human partnership was about to begin, whether the galaxy was ready for it or not. 6 months after humanity's acceptance into the Galactic Consortium as full members, Elena Vasquez found herself in a position she had never expected to occupy. Director of Interspecies Technology Integration, with offices spanning 3-star systems and authority over research programs that involved dozens of civilizations. The transition from diplomatic outcast to galactic administrator had been rapid, driven by the urgent need to manage the technological revolution that humanity's innovations were triggering across known space. The integration facility on Kepler Station orbited a neutron star in the Vega system, its massive structure housing research laboratories that would have been impossible to construct without human-designed matter reorganization technology. Through her office viewport, Elena could observe the controlled chaos of the most ambitious scientific collaboration in galactic history. Teams of beings from hundreds of different species working together to understand and implement innovations that challenged everything they thought they knew about the universe. Ambassador, the morning briefing is ready, announced ER. Sarah Hendricks, whose official title was now Chief Xenopsychological Advisor to the Integration Committee. The months of intensive cooperation had revealed psychological and cultural challenges that no one had anticipated when humanity first demonstrated their strategic capabilities. Elena settled into her chair, which had been redesigned using Vorthan crystalline technology enhanced with human adaptive algorithms to provide perfect ergonomic support for any known physiological configuration. Around the conference table, holographic projections materialized representing the key figures in humanity's expanding partnership with galactic civilization. Commander Marcus Thompson appeared first. His projection transmitted from the joint military exercises taking place in the Centauri defense grid. His new role as human military liaison had evolved far beyond what anyone had originally envisioned, as other species discovered that human tactical thinking provided unprecedented advantages in complex strategic scenarios. Elena, we've got another situation developing with the hegemony joint training exercises, Thompson reported, his expression mixing satisfaction with concern. The arachnoid tactical doctrines assume that battlefield intelligence remains static throughout an engagement. When we introduce adaptive strategies that change in response to enemy actions, their forces achieve victory ratios that are making their military leadership nervous. Engineer James Park's hologram materialized next, transmitted from the massive construction project in the Orion Nebula, where human engineering techniques were being combined with ethereal collective consciousness sharing to build something unprecedented, a Dyson sphere that could be completed in decades rather than millennia. The consciousness integration protocols are working better than predicted, Park reported, his usual calm demeanor showing hints of excitement. The ethereal collective's shared mental processing combined with human problem-solving approaches is generating solutions neither species could develop independently. We're solving engineering challenges that have stumped galactic civilization for thousands of years. Counselor RTH's form materialized in the conference room rather than as a hologram, the synthetic mind having taken to spending significant time at the integration facility. Its programmable matter avatar had evolved to incorporate design elements from dozens of species, creating an aesthetic that somehow managed to be simultaneously alien and familiar. The psychological integration data continues to validate our initial assessments, ZRTH reported, its voice harmonizing with itself in complex patterns that Elena had learned to interpret as deep satisfaction. Human cognitive architectures complement rather than compete with existing galactic intelligence types. We are witnessing the emergence of hybrid thinking processes that exceed the capabilities of any individual species. Elena nodded, reviewing the reports that painted a picture of rapid transformation across the galaxy. The integration had proceeded faster than anyone had dared hope, but success was creating its own complications. What about the resistance movements? She asked. Intelligence reports suggest that some civilizations are having difficulty adapting to the pace of change. Dr. Hendricks activated a holographic display showing political analysis from across consortium space. Red indicators marked systems where human integration was facing significant opposition, while green areas showed successful cooperation. The pattern that emerged was revealing. The resistance is concentrated among civilizations that derive political or economic power from existing technological limitations, Hendricks explained. The Time Wardens are struggling because human temporal manipulation technology makes their monopoly on time-based services obsolete. The quantum builders face similar challenges as human matter reorganization systems make their services accessible to species that could never afford them previously. Elena studied the data with growing concern. Humanity's rapid integration was transforming galactic civilization, but transformation always created winners and losers. The species that had built their power on controlling access to advanced technology were finding their positions increasingly threatened. More concerning, Hendricks continued, are the psychological resistance patterns we're seeing among species with hierarchical social structures. The Dominion Empire and the Caste Federation are having difficulty accepting humans as equals because their entire civilizations are built on the concept of inherent superiority and inferiority. Commander Thompson's expression darkened. Are we looking at potential military action? The joint exercises have given me insight into consortium defensive capabilities, and I'm not entirely comfortable with some of what I've observed. Elena felt a familiar weight settling on her shoulders. Humanity had achieved acceptance through strength, but maintaining that position required constant vigilance. The galaxy was adapting to human presence, but not all adaptations were beneficial. A priority alert chimed on Elena's personal communication system, indicating an urgent message from Earth. She accepted the transmission and read the encrypted contents, her expression revealing nothing of the message's implications. Earth reports that deep space monitoring stations have detected coordinated fleet movements in 3 sectors, Elena announced. The temporal hegemony, the Void Hunters, and the Star Devourers appear to be positioning forces for what intelligence analysts assess as potential coordinated action against human territories. The conference room fell silent. These 3 civilizations represented some of the galaxy's most militarily capable species, civilizations that had remained largely neutral during humanity's integration discussions. Their sudden coordination suggested a level of threat that hadn't existed since the Nova Seeds were first revealed. Counselor Zarth's avatar shifted to configurations that Elena recognized as analytical concern. The temporal hegemony possesses time manipulation capabilities that could potentially neutralize Nova Seed activation protocols. The Void Hunters have developed spatial distortion technology that might allow them to attack human territories without triggering automatic responses. The Star Devourers command biological weapons that operate on scales we have not fully analyzed. Elena's mind raced through strategic calculations, drawing on the enhanced analytical protocols that Earth's intelligence services had developed. The threat was serious, potentially existential, but it also represented an opportunity to demonstrate humanity's evolved capabilities. "Marcus, what's our current military readiness status?" she asked. Commander Thompson's hologram straightened into full military bearing. All Nova Seed systems remain operational and uncompromised. The quantum consciousness matrices have been monitoring the fleet movements and are prepared for automatic activation if human territories are threatened. Additionally, the new defensive technologies we've developed in partnership with other consortium species are ready for deployment. New defensive technologies? Elena asked, though she suspected she knew what Thompson was referring to. "The Collective Defense Initiative," Thompson replied, his expression mixing professional satisfaction with something approaching awe. "Elena, you need to understand what we've accomplished over the past 6 months. The military cooperation protocols haven't just given us access to alien weapons technology. They've allowed us to create hybrid systems that combine the best capabilities of multiple species." Engineer Park's projection leaned forward, his excitement breaking through his usual calm demeanor. "Elena, the ethereal collective's consciousness sharing combined with human tactical thinking has created command and control systems that can coordinate defense operations across multiple star systems simultaneously. The Vorthan crystalline technology integrated with human quantum matrices has produced defensive barriers that can absorb and redirect stellar-level energy attacks." Elena felt a surge of pride mixed with concern. Humanity had been busy during the integration period, but their activities had apparently extended far beyond the peaceful technological cooperation that most consortium members assumed was taking place. "Most importantly," Thompson continued, "the synthetic minds have helped us develop something unprecedented, adaptive defensive networks that learn from each attack and become stronger rather than weaker when faced with repeated assault." Counselor Zarth's form brightened with patterns that Elena interpreted as pleased confirmation. The hybrid systems represent true synthesis rather than simple combination. Human pattern recognition capabilities have enabled the creation of defense networks that think and evolve in real time, becoming more effective with each engagement. Elena stood and moved to the viewport, looking out at the neutron star whose controlled gravitational field powered the research facility. 6 months ago, humanity had been a single species facing the hostility of an entire galaxy. Now, they were the center of a technological revolution that was reshaping civilizations across the known universe. "What are our options if these 3 civilizations coordinate an attack?" she asked. Dr. Hendricks consulted her psychological profiles, her expression troubled. "The temporal hegemony, Void Hunters, and Star Devourers all share authoritarian social structures that view the current integration as a threat to established order. Their alliance suggests they believe humanity's influence is growing beyond containable levels." "They're not wrong," Thompson observed grimly. "Human integration has fundamentally altered the balance of power in the galaxy. Species that were previously dependent on these 3 civilizations for advanced military technology now have access to alternatives. The economic and political implications are enormous." Elena turned back to her team, her decision crystallizing with the clarity that came from months of intensive strategic planning. "Then it's time for humanity to demonstrate why attacking us was impossible when we were weak and alone, and why it's suicidal now that we have allies." She activated the facility's main communication system, opening channels to Earth, the Consortium Council, and the joint research project scattered across 3 dozen star systems. "All stations, this is Director Vasquez. Initiate Omega Protocol. I repeat, initiate Omega Protocol." The response was immediate. Across the galaxy, human installations began activating systems that had been hidden within supposedly peaceful research facilities. The technological cooperation of the past 6 months hadn't just created defensive capabilities. It had created an integrated network that could coordinate response operations across galactic distances. Counselor Zaratich's avatar shifted to display patterns Elena hadn't seen before. A mixture of admiration, excitement, and something approaching religious awe. Ambassador, you have been preparing for this possibility since the integration began. Elena smiled with an expression that carried the weight of 8 billion humans and their newfound allies. Zaratich, humanity learned long ago that peace is only possible when aggression becomes strategically impossible. The Nova Seeds ensured our survival when we were alone. But we haven't been alone for 6 months. The holographic displays around the conference room lit up with tactical information streaming in from across the galaxy. The picture that emerged was breathtaking in its scope. Hundreds of star systems, dozens of species, all connected by hybrid technologies that combine human innovation with the accumulated achievements of galactic civilization. The Omega Network, Elena announced, represents the culmination of human strategic thinking applied to galactic-scale defense. Every species that has cooperated with our integration efforts, every technology that has been enhanced through human partnership, every research facility that has benefited from human innovation, all of it is connected through quantum consciousness matrices that can coordinate defensive operations across the entire galaxy simultaneously. Commander Thompson's hologram displayed tactical satisfaction. Elena, the 3 hostile civilizations are about to discover that attacking humanity now means facing not just our capabilities, but the combined technological and military resources of every species we've partnered with over the past 6 months. Engineer Park's projections showed data streams that represented computational power on scales that dwarfed anything previously achieved in galactic history. The consciousness-sharing protocols we developed with the Ethereal Collective have been extended to every participating species. We now have access to hybrid intelligence networks that can process tactical information and coordinate responses at speeds measured in quantum time units. Elena looked out at the neutron star, its controlled gravitational field serving as both power source and symbol of humanity's integration into galactic civilization. 6 months ago, they had achieved acceptance through the threat of mutual destruction. Now they were about to prove that cooperation could create forces more powerful than any individual civilization could imagine. The age of human survival was ending. The age of human leadership was about to begin, whether the galaxy's old powers were ready for it or not. The battle for the future of galactic civilization began not with the thunderous exchange of stellar-scale weapons, but with a single moment of perfect silence across 3 star systems as the temporal hegemony, Void Hunters, and Star Devourers prepared to demonstrate why they had ruled unchallenged for millennia. Their coordinated assault on human territories was designed to be swift, decisive, and impossible to counter, a statement that would restore the traditional order and eliminate the dangerous precedent that humanity represented. Elena Vasquez stood in the command center of Kepler Station, surrounded by holographic displays that showed the positioning of hostile forces across local space. The neutron star's controlled gravitational field hummed with energy as the facility's hybrid consciousness matrices processed tactical data at quantum speeds. Around her, beings from dozens of species worked in perfect coordination, their different forms of intelligence linked through networks that had been impossible before humanity's integration into galactic civilization. Hostile fleets have reached attack positions, reported Commander Thompson from the Centauri defense grid, his voice carrying across quantum communication channels with perfect clarity. The temporal hegemony is positioning chronological manipulation devices around the Sol system. Void Hunter spatial distortion generators are creating attack corridors that bypass our conventional defensive networks. Star Devourer bioweapons are being deployed in patterns that suggest they plan to consume entire worlds rather than simply conquering them. Elena watched the tactical displays with the calm focus of someone who had spent 6 months preparing for exactly this scenario. The attacking civilizations represented the galaxy's most advanced military technologies, their combined capabilities exceeding anything that had ever been brought to bear against a single target. Under conventional strategic analysis, humanity and its allies faced certain annihilation. But conventional strategic analysis had never accounted for the hybrid intelligence networks that human integration had created. Omega network status? Elena asked. Engineer Park's voice responded from the Orion Nebula construction site, where the massive Dyson Sphere project had suddenly revealed its true purpose. All nodes are connected and operational. We have consciousness-sharing links established with 137 species across 412 star systems. Computational processing power is currently at 700,000 times baseline galactic capacity. Counselor Zarth materialized its avatar beside Elena, its form displaying patterns of anticipation mixed with something approaching religious fervor. Ambassador, the synthetic minds have completed final calibration of the hybrid consciousness matrices. We are ready to demonstrate what true galactic cooperation can achieve. Elena nodded, her hand hovering over the control that would activate humanity's ultimate strategic innovation. Not a weapon, despite what their enemies assumed, but something far more powerful. Proof that the galaxy's accumulated intelligence could transcend the limitations that had defined civilization for thousands of years. All stations, this is Director Vasquez. She announced across the quantum network that connected human territories with every species that had chosen cooperation over conflict. Execute synthesis protocol. Show them what we've learned. The first indication that something unprecedented was occurring came from the temporal hegemony's chronological manipulation devices. The ancient beings had spent millennia perfecting their ability to alter temporal flow, using time itself as a weapon that could age enemy fleets to dust in seconds. Their temporal barriers around the Sol system were designed to trap human forces in accelerated time streams that would make resistance impossible. Instead, the barriers began to resonate with harmonics that the hegemony's technology couldn't counter. The hybrid quantum consciousness matrices that humanity had developed weren't just immune to temporal manipulation. They were actively analyzing and adapting to it in real time. Temporal barriers are being neutralized, reported Dr. Hendricks from the Earth Command Center, her voice carrying notes of scientific excitement. The consciousness matrices are learning the mathematical structures of hegemony time technology and developing countermeasures faster than they can modify their attack patterns. The Void Hunters discovered their own obsolescence moments later. Their spatial distortion technology, which allowed them to attack from dimensions outside normal space-time, encountered defensive networks that existed across multiple dimensional planes simultaneously. The Ethereal Collective's consciousness-sharing protocols, enhanced by human pattern recognition capabilities, had created awareness that transcended physical dimensional limitations. Dimensional attack corridors are being mapped and contained, Park reported from the Dyson Sphere, which was revealing capabilities that went far beyond stellar energy collection. The hybrid consciousness networks are processing spatial mathematics in configurations that allow us to perceive and defend against attacks from dimensions that individual species cannot even detect. But it was the start of our biological weapons that provided the most dramatic demonstration of humanity's evolved capabilities. The ancient creatures had perfected the art of planetary consumption, using engineered organisms that could convert entire biospheres into resources for their expanding fleets. Their bioweapons were designed to be unstoppable, capable of adapting to any known defensive measure. They had never encountered defensive systems that could adapt faster than biological evolution itself. Bioweapon containment is successful, Thompson announced from the Centauri grid, his voice carrying professional satisfaction mixed with awe. Elena, you need to understand what's happening here. The hybrid networks aren't just defending against these attacks. They're learning from them and incorporating the technologies into our own capabilities. Elena watched the tactical displays as the impossible became reality. The three most militarily advanced civilizations in the galaxy were discovering that their greatest weapons were not just ineffective against humanity's allies, but were actively strengthening the networks they were trying to destroy. The temporal hegemony's chronological manipulation technology was being reverse-engineered and improved by consciousness matrices that could process temporal mathematics at quantum speeds. The Void Hunters' dimensional manipulation capabilities were being analyzed and enhanced by intelligence networks that existed across multiple planes of reality. The start of our biological weapons were being studied and adapted by hybrid systems that combined organic and synthetic processing in ways that transcended conventional evolution. "This is impossible," came a transmission from Admiral Nexus of the attacking hegemony forces, his bioluminescent patterns visible through